Okay, so I think this will be the final lecture in this series. I think it would be appropriate now to look at cultural and global perspectives in AI ethics. We're going to look at this through a global lens. AI doesn't sort of develop in a vacuum. So it's shaped by cultural values, political systems, and social priorities. So it makes the most sense to look at it now in this broad sense. What one society really considers ethical may not align with another's standards. So we're going to explore these differences and sort of hopefully gain a deeper understanding of both the challenges and opportunities for AI governance worldwide. Let's start with Western liberal traditions. So this is like the United States and much of Western Europe. So in these regions, sort of ethical debates often focus on individual rights, privacy, freedom of speech, and protection against discrimination. This is the product of post-modernity. So modernity is when society is heading towards the idea of a progression, and post-modernity is when society loses its narrative. It sort of becomes more abstract and individualized. I often say that we're in an era of hyper-individualization. And I also always think the irony of post-modernity is not having a narrative is a narrative. So it's kind of a paradox. The US tends to prioritize innovation and market-driven growth because it's like, they always say America is a business and it's very capitalist. Sometimes at the expense of regulation. Think of the sort of rapid development of companies like Google, OpenAI, or Meta, which is Facebook, and Instagram now. The European Union, sort of by contrast, emphasizes the precautionary principle. Its general data protection regulation and upcoming AI Act places more strict safeguards around sort of data use and algorithmic decision making. We discussed its AI Act in one of the previous lectures. So the European Union sort of goes for a more socialist, sort of capitalist / socialist, diet socialist, really, a bit of a watered down socialism sort of view on this, whilst America is much more sort of strongly capitalist and business orientated. So even within the West, there are cultural differences. So like the US leans towards freedom to innovate, while the EU leans towards regulation to protect citizens. Oftentimes the UK is seen as a sort of nanny state. So let's look at China and sort of state-centric models. In China, AI ethics takes on a very different shape. Here, sort of AI is often framed as a tool for collective stability and state governance, rather than individual freedom. This sort of plays into their communist-style society. AI sort of driven surveillance systems such as facial recognition in public spaces or the social credit system are justified as promoting social order, unity, and the most effective, efficient society possible, which on paper sounds good, but being raised in a Western country doesn't sound so great. Although one could argue that the UK is not far behind it, as we've just implemented facial recognition in public spaces and hopefully not the social credit system anytime soon. From a Western perspective, these uses may seem sort of invasive or authoritarian, but within the Chinese cultural political framework, they are often viewed as consistent with values of harmony, control, and national strength, that strong nationality. And it raises key questions here. Is AI ethics universal, or is it culturally relative? That cultural relativism is a very interesting concept. I could probably make a whole Udemy module on that, and maybe one day I will. So let's look at the global south now. AI also has this sort of profound impact in the global south. It's often in ways overlooked by wealthier nations and parts of the world. But in Africa, South Asia, and Latin America, AI is being used in agriculture, healthcare, and education. And it's leapfrogging sometimes traditional infrastructure. There are also some concerns of data colonialism, where tech companies from global north extract data and resources from global south without fair returns. Ethical debates here sort of are focusing on justice, access and equity. Who benefits from AI and who is left behind. I'm just going to briefly explain what equity is. There was a really good picture of this. So equality is when everyone gets the same size box to stand on, but like the shorter person can't see past the wall. And then equity is like everyone gets the boxes that are most appropriate for them to stand on. So the short person gets 2 boxes so he can see over the wall. The tall person gets no boxes because they're tall enough to see over the wall. And then the slightly less tall person gets 1 box. I always find that is a really good way of explaining what equity is. So this perspective highlights that AI is not just about innovation, it's also about global fairness. Now let's look at cross-cultural ethical tensions. So when these models meet, US innovation first, EU regulation first, China's state-centric model and global south concerns about justice, tensions definitely emerge. Should international AI governance prioritize privacy, security or equity? Who gets to set the ethical standards? Global organizations like the UN or powerful states and corporations? And can a shared global framework even exist given such different cultural values? Can there be social cohesion and integration in our ideas of ethics towards AI? Is that possible? That is the age-old question. Can cultures mix? So towards a sort of global dialogue here, despite these differences, there are consistent attempts to find common ground. So the UNESCO has proposed global guidelines on AI ethics, and we discussed that earlier, emphasizing human dignity and sustainability. And the OECD has developed AI principles adopted by over 40 countries. And grassroots movements in many countries are pushing for responsible AI development that reflects local and cultural values rather than imported frameworks. So they're trying to avoid the whole colonial element of this technological super spread. So the future of AI ethics may not be enforcing one global model, but rather about building a dialogue across cultures where ethical principles can be adapted and contextualized without being imposed. So to summarize this fairly meaty lecture up, cultural and global perspectives on AI and ethics sort of show us that in the US and Europe, debates center on rights, innovation and regulation. In China, AI is framed through state priorities and collective stability. In the global south, issues of justice, equity and data colonialism are more dominant. And globally, the challenge is finding common principles that respect diversity while still addressing universal human concerns. So understanding these perspectives is crucial because AI is a global technology. The decisions made in one part of the world will inevitably shape lives everywhere else. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. I hope you've enjoyed this crash course sort of module in AI and ethics. Feel free to message me, leave me a review, good or bad. I'm always down for learning what I can do better. And yeah, it's been nice to do this one, and I hope you found it interesting. Thank you.